All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Ruthless ST Radio. As always, I am your lovely host, Nick Burnow. And this week I have Greg, who was on the show last week, and also I have Maria with me this week. Guys, how you doing?
Just Andy.
Doing all right, buddy.
So, as we talked about last week, Greg, last weekend was the PRI Show in Indianapolis. And while we didn't get um, the content that I had originally wanted, partially because nobody told me what content to get, but also partially because the um, the show wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be. And I think you're going to kind of share my opinion on that.
I mean, I'll
Um,
jump in really quick, but I like from the year that I went with you guys and then
which
to
was
this year,
which was 2019, which was the last year
yeah,
they had it.
definitely a lot smaller. And you even noticed like some of the parts are closed and some of it was like half of like even went into Lucas Oil and stuff. It
Right.
was very like cut off at a certain point. So definitely like downscaled to a certain size, and it seemed so like pretty big and pretty like had valuable things and still had like a lot of things to look at and everything else, but just the dynamic was just kind of like maybe like shrunk down like 25-40% maybe.
Right. Well, before we dive into that, before we take that really deep dive into PRI, and we'll elaborate on that here in a minute. But before I do that, I do have to pay some bills and thank a sponsor. Um, Jeff out at the Car Spa is a really great guy. He does fantastic work. Um, I haven't talked to him in a couple weeks though, so I got to see what his schedule is like. But he can get you in. He can do anything from a basic wash to a full-on ceramic coating, and he does it right out of his house here in Springfield. For more info, make sure you take a look at the Car Spa on Facebook and also the carspadetailing.weebly.com. Again, that is the carspadetailing.weebly.com. Or, again, the better option would be to get on Facebook and just look up the Car Spa. He's a great guy, and he'll actually give you 10% off for telling him that we sent you. So hit him up, get you scheduled, and get your car what your car needs, which is a nice bath, especially in the winter. The Car Spa. Your car needs this. That was a pretty good read, wouldn't you say, Greg? You know, off the cusp, uh, impromptu, all those good things.
Better than last week, that's for sure.
It flowed a little better.
Exactly.
So, kind of like I said before we cut into the sponsor spot, kind of what Maria was saying. The show was smaller. However, that's both good and bad, right? That's good because there's not as many people to wade through, and I quite frankly like that a hell of a lot more. But it's bad because it kind of shows you what the industry was doing. For example, I mean in 2019, right, pre-pandemic. Here's a perfect example. Ford Performance had a massive booth. I mean, it was the size of GM's. And now even GM had to downsize their booth. Ford had one booth, whereas they usually have, I don't know, wouldn't you say they take up a nice decent chunk of aisle. I'd say they had like 5 or 6 spots in 2019, for example.
Ford I think had like at least like maybe like 7 spots, we'll say, because they had the cars and stuff there, a lot
Right.
of Fords, and they had the engines and all that jazz. But now I think it was like what, a spot and a half maybe, and it didn't
Maybe
even have like a car or anything. It
right.
just had the engine, the bolts, all like the internal outings of the car, but no like actual car
Right.
in it.
Right.
Heck, Racing Electronics had a bigger booth than they needed.
Yeah, RE had a really nice booth. I agree. Um, one of the things that was interesting and that I had never never considered doing is, so this was kind of the first time that PRI put a focus on content creation and social influencers and how that relates to the motorsport business and what it can do for a certain brand. And two or there were originally three seminars I wanted to go to, and we ended up going to two of them. We went to, and I still laugh at this every time I read it, right? The seminar on Friday was literally called, and we're going to pardon the French because I'm going to actually say the full name, but what the fuck is content? And it actually dived in pretty good. Not only, what is content and how can it help business, but Mr. Kassler, the guy that was the host of that particular seminar, also dived into, what is a social influencer, what is a content creator, and what can content creators do to not only entice brands to maybe work with them, but also, kind of give brands a good idea of what um, what the content creating community can do for that particular business, which was pretty nice. It was, I don't know, about an hour and a half long, and it had really good information in it. Um, and you're going to start seeing some of those changes on this show, but we'll go into that at a later date.
Wasn't the guy who ran the Friday seminar also in the Saturday morning one, correct? He was like
Yes,
one of the 5 panel people.
yes, he was also, and that was what I was getting to. What he was on the inaugural PRI called it the inaugural social influencer slash content creation panel, and it was very early in the morning. But it was also a good panel because it had Emily Reeves from Flying Sparks Garage. It had Kassler from Driveline, and it also had a representative from NASCAR's social media team, and
Yeah,
then
she's pretty new. I think her name was Jacqueline Drake.
something like
Um,
that, yeah. And
yeah,
then Alex Taylor was there too.
mm-hmm.
And then there
Which
was a
I sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. So I thought it was interesting because within there, like, you just have all these people, and then, they all had some sort of social media. They're all were explaining a lot of just like a building basis, which I thought it kind of like, if you probably went to the seminar on Friday, it kind of was like a bouncing off point, because it's like, okay, what the, excuse my French, what the fuck is content. It goes into the Saturday one where it's like, okay, what, now you saw that seminar, let's go to this seminar where you have 5 creators here who, like they said, 5 years ago, they didn't have any content. They didn't do any like YouTube, Instagram, whatever ish. They didn't have any of it. Slowly building it. And I think that was the cool thing of knowing that like none of these people really had a following, never had to build off of anything, and they had to create it on their own. So it was a good kind of like process of like really understanding and really seeing that like not everything is gonna be right on target, like immediately gonna happen, immediately gonna have success. It takes building years and years of content in order to get a following, to get a building, to get the sponsors and all that.
I think a lot of these brands do are just going in and not really realizing how to play the algorithm and how to play the trends and stuff. So I mean, if they went to, if you went to both of those seminars, I think you'd get a bigger picture. Whereas I think maybe some people that weren't able to make both of them would only get half the picture. You know what I mean?
Right,
But
right. And
overall, I think that's something the trade show needs to focus on more and bring that back and maybe elaborate a little bit more and make it a full 3 day thing.
well, too, anymore in the industry, right? You look at guys like hell, look at Finnegan, right? Before Roadkill, where was he? He was a editor slash contributor at Hot Rod. Now he does all his own shit and hardly does anything for Hot Rod anymore. I mean, he does Roadkill. He does Faster with Finnegan, but he transitioned from at least I think, a print guy to he's all on YouTube and Motor Trend now. You look at stuff like that, and That's where the industry was 5, 7 years ago. Now it's all YouTube, podcasts, and I think, and don't get me wrong, PRI was. I mean, they could have done this in 2019, and honestly, I wish they would have. But the fact that they're getting to it now and they're realizing it now that it's a big part of the industry, I think that is going to speak leaps and bounds for little guys like us, or me in this specific case, who are getting started maybe. And it's a place where creators can go to not only make content, but also to network to then make more content.
Well, then it's also kind of like a thing of like, think about it. 5, 6 years ago, I don't think social media was as big in like businesses and big in industries as it is today, you know?
Yeah,
Because
I
they're
would I
trying
would
to
agree with that.
build, yeah, they're trying to build into that audience. So there's like a younger generation, there's an older generation too, where it's like, okay, the older generation doesn't really understand the social media aspect, doesn't understand the content aspect when it comes to online and being virtual, versus this new generation where they're, getting like honestly professionally into this. I even look at it like, I teach younger children, and the the skills that they understand from basic technology is amazing, and they're under 10 years old. So that's what I think, they're kind of intertwining like the whole, we used to be like this, now we need to understand to be like this. And that's why they're getting all this younger people, they're getting all these younger, kind of content creators to build off of the younger generation coming into the racing industry.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
to kind of elaborate off of that too, I mean, I guess there was a good example of it. There were a couple of middle-aged guys, maybe late 40s to, I guess, late 40s to mid 50s, and I think they were the most vocal out of everybody else in that room. I mean, the demographic range for anybody probably in their late 20s till, you know, early 60s, but like the 40 and 50-year-old guys, they're the ones getting up and asking the content creators, hey, I'm doing, I think one of the examples is like he's running like a machinery business for some
hmm
components for race cars, and just he wasn't quite sure how to build it up, and he's just kind of throwing content out there, and he's kind of just elaborating off of a couple of the points, like the content and how they how they just kept being persistent. They were watching the algorithm, trying to hop on trends. Like it's like a whole different learning experience for the older generation. And
right.
that really definitely came out in those seminars.
Right, right. And I think, as the years progress, especially this decade where there isn't the buying, well, the whole experience has changed, right? You look at what COVID has done to, say, car buying, for example. Actually, this is a really good example. Dad's got an order in for a C8. Have we heard anything about our order? No. Does Chevy even know we exist? Probably not. Is the dealer holding our hand? No. Should they be? Probably. We're spending a lot of money. Um, but that sorta has trickled into parts and part buying and how brands interact with people, right? Your online presence is now more important than, say, your in-person presence.
And I think that's where PRI comes in, where you're at this, industry of all these car parts, all these like different brands trying to, sell their parts of engines and sell their nuts and bolts, or here, try my springs, try this lever that I got, try this screw, try this mechanic, try this welding material that I use. Like that's where it kind of intertwines with like, you know, going from not just basic, I don't know anything about a car, but I like it, but it's cool, to okay, here, let me go into the very minor details of cars and let me see it in person at a PRI thing, and it's going to help me out with that.
Right. Well, and that's kind of our other example too, right? So, Dad and I this year, we typically go to PRI with a couple different things in mind, or in this case, a shopping list. That's what we call it, anyways, or I call it. So this year, our shopping list
I feel like it
was,
grew.
huh?
Your shopping. I feel like your father's and your shopping list like just went from one thing, and then it just kind of like escalated to like the minorities that like you didn't think about beforehand, which was kind of interesting to see. I'm not gonna lie.
So,
Oh yeah, it absolutely exploded. To be honest, you go there
so,
to rebuild the top part of your engine. Next thing you know, you're almost walking out with the trailer.
well, that's true. That's a side story that we'll get into, right? But so the original shopping list was you're right, was top end parts for the LS6 for the race car. Everything from heads to push rods to lifter bearings, not necessarily the lifters themselves, valve springs, all of that stuff. And the nice thing about PRI is we know it's all there. Whether it's from GM Performance or in the case of the roller bearing kit from CHE, which, by the way, that is the roller bearing kit we're going to end up going with. Imagine
It's a
that.
nice one.
It was very nice. And while we didn't, they actually had a drawing for the, they actually had a drawing to get a free bearing kit from them, which unfortunately we didn't win. Unfortunately, we did
Yeah, the
get it.
lady thought it was your dad's card too. That was the funny part.
I know, I know, but um, we actually did get a 10% discount from entering the drawing, so that's great. Money off is fabulous. Um,
We're sitting there talking to the guy for 30 minutes, so it's kind of nice that they were able to do something for you too.
yes, yes. Well, and just the fact that again, it goes back to it's PRI. Everybody loves their presence. But it's one of the only places that you can get substantial info right from the people that make the stuff, right? Like we talked to GM Performance for a total between the 2 days we were there. We probably talked to GM Performance for about as long, about a half hour. Same with Texas Speed. We were there 15, 20 minutes. CHE, we were there about a half hour. But it's just nice that we can A, put names to faces of people, but B, typically we can see what we're looking at, or, what we are looking to acquire, which is nice.
Plus,
Um,
90% of the guys will give you their phone numbers to call if you have any questions while installing. You don't
exactly,
get you
exactly.
don't get that often.
No, you don't. And that kind of goes back to everybody there's a community there, right? There's a understanding that you at least somewhat know what you're talking about, and if you don't, well, the manufacturer sure will educate you.
They definitely will, because like I'm not gonna lie, like some of the things like I understand and I get, and like I slowly I'm starting to understand the very small details of like an engine and what changes it, a V8 versus like a V6 and things like that. But they do, it's basically like education. And it's basically like, literally taking baby steps of like, okay, well, you don't know what this is yet, but here, let me show you this. This is gonna better explain it. So to somebody like, me who, I love I love cars, I love racing cars and things like that. It gives me a better understanding of when I go see a car or I go see like a car show or something. I can look in their engine and say, oh, they have like a V8, and I see like that valve spring and I'm like, ooh, that's a nice one, or it's from that company and that type of thing, which I actually enjoy personally, being somebody who doesn't know that much about cars and everything.
Just so you know, you're not actually going to see valve springs in an engine bay unless they have clear valve covers.
You know
Just
what?
saying.
We're just gonna pretend, okay? Like I said, I don't know that much about cars, but I'm slowly learning. Thank you for teaching me. There we go.
Yeah. Well, I had to get that in there. You left the door open for that.
It's fine. I mean, like I said, I'll be totally honest. I'm a very big novice. I mean, I've been like, just starting to follow all these like different car people, and then start with NASCAR, and then I'm into IndyCar, and then I get Nitro Cross Rally, and then I'm slowly now just like, wow, I want to follow everything that involves car racing or car something. So it's a good good basis point. I'm not gonna lie, and apparently not a lot of girls are race fans. So here we are.
Well, and that kind of brings up a point. And Greg, I'm kind of surprised you didn't bring it up before I did. There's an increasing amount of women getting into cars and getting into racing. And I think, don't get me wrong, I think part of that is because of people like Haley Deegan, who, I don't
Not
know.
even Haley Deegan. I mean, I'll bring up right now Alex Taylor. When she was there, she said she was on YouTube for a while, and sometimes, if women look up things, they'll find people like Alex Taylor and they'll follow her and things like that. Or let's even, go into the drag industry. John Force's two daughters, they're drag racers. People like, maybe they go with dad and stuff like when they're younger. Now they see like Brittany Force, like, oh wait, that's my dad's daughter's driver, whatever. So they build up a following. So it all starts kind of based on like the most simplest thing of like, I remember this from a memory, or I remember this because I saw this on an online thing. And that's how you're basing it off of, like getting more of like the feminine side to all this. And I think one of the things at PRI, if I remember when I was like kind of looking at the seminars, one of them was women in motorsports, and it had like this whole panel of like people in motorsports and like all females and like the accomplishments, like what they did. I think one of them was oh god, what was her name? Well, I was looking at it like, I don't know, like before we went there. Of course I wasn't there on Friday, but I think one of them was like Jeanette something. I think was a moderator or something. But again, women in the industry, getting them involved, building more of a community with women, adding on to the men aspect, whereas men are usually known for it.
I'll
Right.
keep this one a little more simple. I think it all started with Right on Track from Disney.
With what?
You
You
know,
said that a
Right
little
on Track.
fast.
Oh, Right on Track from Disney
Oh,
Channel.
yeah.
That movie.
Yeah.
It was
The
like
the
the
Ender
start of like,
sisters.
yeah, it's
Erica and
like,
Coriander.
Mhm.
That was my favorite movie. I love that movie. Like even now, like I think I saw it like on Disney Plus, and I was like, oh my god, I love this movie.
It
And I
is. It
think
is on
what
Disney Plus, and it is a fantastic movie. I
it,
completely agree.
it was so funny because someone was like, "That's like a weird movie. Like all they do is race cars." I'm like, "Yeah, but like they started when they were little, and they build up to it, and they get into it, and it's. I mean, I love it. I'm like, I think it's a good movie. I
Yeah.
remember like someone's like, "That's not a movie you should like." I'm like, "Well, that must be my secret love of racing, which I have now kind of exploded into."
Yeah. I just the industry is that's kind of what's nice, right? The industry is always evolving and changing into whatever the industry evolves and changes into. So I think going back to how small the show was.
before you do that, I was going to touch base on Haley Deegan too, because you brought up Haley Deegan.
I
You
did.
know, yeah, I'm pretty sure she was a 2001 baby, if I'm not
I
thinking about
would
it.
hedge
Yeah,
a bet and agree with you.
right. 2001, yeah, because I mean, you think about it, she started going from off-road karting probably what about 2015, 2016, right? And
Yeah.
she started NASCAR K&N in 2018. But like
Yeah.
the whole point is she's got a whole different other dynamic. You know what I mean? You get all
Right.
these different vloggers out there. I guess the more notorious one is Jake Paul
Oh
and his
God.
brother and stuff. Yeah,
We'll
gotta
we'll
love the
we'll we'll
those
touch
brothers.
on
But
a headline I heard about him today.
all right,
We'll
we'll
touch
get
on
there.
that a
Sure.
little later. But
But what I was gonna say was, you know, you look at all these different YouTubers and stuff, and I think Haley's got she came into the world at right a good time, just because she's kind
Yeah.
of the pioneer to keep bringing in all these little kids, or young adults, I should say, into this industry.
Yeah, and actually during the What the Fuck is Content seminar, her name actually came up a couple times because of what she's doing and how she's done it, you know? Um, so that was kind of nice. But to kind of kind of go back to the show was a little smaller. I would agree the show was a little smaller. I wouldn't quite. I'd say it was, I don't know, probably 20 to 30% smaller than it used to be. And
Seems like a good number.
yeah, and I think most of that, right, is due to COVID. Because you got to think about it a little bit. Most international companies either couldn't get here in time, or it was more cost prohibitive this time.
Or it could have been also, so I know a lot of countries where it's like if you come to the US, you have to get like tested or
Right.
show vaccination or whatever. So that could also be a very like high possibility of that. So and yeah, like you said, it's just it doesn't work and they don't come.
Right. Right. So, and I think that's a lot of it. But at the same time, because it was a smaller show, it was better because you could spend more time at various manufacturers. The manufacturers, the flip side of that is the manufacturers have more people to talk to more people, and it was just an overall the quality was better. Um,
Oh, absolutely. But going kind of back, I guess, to the cost of everything. I mean, some of these corporations are pretty big and some are pretty small, but they all seem to kind of feed in off each other. So they must be still making somewhat of a decent amount of money, because I don't know if money really has that much of an issue with PRI, because I remember looking into just trying to get like a booth hypothetically, right? And
right,
their booths are was it 10 foot by 10 foot, right? And that's
right.
almost 2 grand. I think it was like 1800 when I
Yeah,
was looking
it's
at it.
it's not cheap. And he just disappeared. There he
Mm,
is.
oh, okay, I must have gotten lost here. Or got high winds. But I was gonna say if you buy two or more of those, 10 by 10 foot boxes, I think they give you like $100 discounts. I mean, I could kind of understand why Ford might have sized down just
Right.
because of COVID. But if you're just getting one booth, though, that's almost pocket change to them.
Well, and you got to look too, right? So while Ford Performance themselves didn't have any vehicles in their booth, the place was littered with Mustangs and Broncos. I mean, there was at least four or
I
five
mean,
Broncos on the floor.
they had like that Bronco experience, was it, where they were showing the different kinds of Bronco bodies and the different types of Broncos and everything that you could possibly like, get. And
Yeah, they did have their Bronco displays there, showing the different types of performance parts that you could get for your new Bronco. Yes, they did.
so maybe that's maybe like a thing of like maybe a reason Ford also kind of like shrunk down in size because they wanted people to see their Bronco like exhibit more than actual Ford. I
Right.
mean, possibility, but I still don't see why they would just shrink down in size to that tiny of a exhibitioner.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that either, and that's that kind of those kind of discussions go on behind closed doors, and I don't think we'll ever know. But it's nice to it's nice to hypothesize, right? Like, I mean, it could be any number of things.
Absolutely, it could be just not having materials. It could be just not having things on time.
Right.
It could just be simply they didn't have enough people because the world we live in today is all help wanted every block you go to.
Right.
And it could be affecting big companies like that. We just don't know it.
Right. One thing that I thought, actually, this is technically kind of two things, right? Because they're in the same room. Two things that I thought were pretty cool this year was the content creation zone, which was new. It kind of goes along with their shift to focus on content creation. But also something that I thought was pretty interesting, a little out there, sure, but interesting nonetheless, was the EV performance zone that was also in that same room.
Oh yeah, that was interesting because that's again talking about like evolution of generation and coming into the sport, coming into motor industries or racing industries. EV, who knows? That could be like within the next 10 years, could be the new like way of energy, the new way of fuel for all the racing out here. So that's good that they kind of like include that because I mean, think about it. How many places now have EV charging stations?
Right.
How many grocery stores have that EV accessible parking? It's slowly becoming a thing. It's slowly, like you said, a futuristic thing. It could start off as small as like autocross has EV cars to start off, and then it evolves from like one thing to it being okay. This is the main source of fuel for all these racing cars.
I agree. And I think I wouldn't necessarily say the next 10 years because I don't think the technology is quite there yet. It's
Oh no.
coming, but
Mm-hmm.
it's I think at a little slower pace than you might think.
Yeah,
But
but
if you look at what currently is going around rumor wise, right? So the next gen car, well,
that's a beauty, by the way. Oh my god.
I agree. I agree. But if you look, the rumor mill in the next couple years is that when they redo the engine the engine packages, I want to say around the new TV deal, there's going to be a hybridization component to the next NASCAR engine. Indy already kind of does. They're doing V6 twin turbos. Um, and they're tiny V6s. They're not very big. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I would assume they're going to go to a hybrid system. You look at IMSA, look at LMDH. They're going hybrid with the prototype class.
Oh, I
WEC
know.
already does that sort of thing with Hypercar.
Yeah,
So
I
it's coming.
know. Yeah, I know today, now that you mentioned like the next gen and stuff, they had testing today at I believe CLT Motor Speedway for the next gen car for NASCAR
Yeah,
at Charlotte
it was
Motor.
at Charlotte. They're having
Yeah, it's
testing.
Charlotte.
So today, for those of you that are going to listen to this as soon as it goes live, it is 11 o'clock on December 15th. So they had testing today. They will do data diagnostics tomorrow, and on the 16th, and then on the 17th, they're going to do more testing. So it's a 2-day test.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and
continue.
I happened to on my lunch plan period when I was at school, I happened to like jump in.
Peek into the stream.
I totally did, and I like didn't I just didn't have a care in the world, but they were I think one of the things that I would peeked in on was they were testing like the packages for like different
Yes.
engines.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was a 670 horsepower with the 6-inch center spoiler,
Right.
and oh, did that baby sounded beautiful. I was like, that in real life, I can only imagine what it sounds like, but watching it on a YouTube video, like that was beautiful. I just like was speechless. I was like, that's nice. I like that sound. It's a nice sound.
Right. And I
And
go ahead, Greg.
I was gonna say this is just a direct thing from NASCAR themselves, but I was gonna say you were talking about some sort of hybrid technology, right? Well, NASCAR themselves, they came out with a new transaxle combine, um, the transmission and rear gears into one package,
Uh
right?
huh.
And they are stating that that should allow them to incorporate electrification in the near future.
Right, and I think I remember hearing that. I remember hearing that part. I think from David Land on one of his This Week in Racing videos, I believe. Because I do remember hearing about that, and I think that's where the hybridization of NASCAR theory has come from. Is that point from NASCAR? I think that's where I heard that from. And
I'm
go ahead.
sorry. I know. I mean, like I said, there's so many things like to keep up with, and what Greg said. Like I know I read that. But I mean, yeah. So like I said, it's all like going back to the EV thing and going back to like the electronics and stuff. It's like, you know, slowly testing, slowly seeing, slowly, seeing what it can do for high performance cars like NASCAR.
Yep. And I think the industry has to evolve, right? And I think especially when you go to PRI, you look and you're seeing that with our own eyes, just on how the show evolves, which I think is pretty cool.
Absolutely. I mean, like the content creator space was very like. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't expect it to be that big. I thought
Yeah,
it was gonna be like a little section, like half a section, and then we just kind of walk in and walk out. Like, oh, that's it. But I mean, we stayed there for pretty decent amount of time. I mean, like I walked around. Caught my eye was Travis Pastrama's a Nitro Rally car, which I've never I've seen it and I've seen him drive it, and I was watching it what week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, because me being a diehard Chase Elliott fan, of course I'm gonna watch him do Nitro Rally.
of course.
Um, it was cool to see that car in real life because it's kind of like seeing exactly like how it's built, what it looks like, the inside and the tires and everything. Like it's nice to see that, and it's cool to see kind of like that um the in person versus TV kind of realities and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. Seeing it up close and personal is very nice. I would agree. So, moving away from PRI, remember Greg earlier in the show I said we were going to talk about Jake Paul.
I I will really why.
I'm curious to see why you're going into this, but go on.
So, I watched Out of the Groove today. And there was a headline because I guess he or Logan, one of the two, whichever one does the boxing more. I think that's Jake, right?
Jake Paul does boxing more.
Okay, yes. Then it was Jake Paul. So there was a question, and that question was, what's after boxing? To which his response was, well, it was, oh, I don't know, maybe this, maybe that. But he said, maybe football, but he also said, and I have no idea why he said this, where he thinks this is coming from, right? But he said maybe NASCAR.
Excuse my language right now, but that's much bullshit. I'm sorry.
So
Like, I'm
so
gonna say this right now. Here's what I'm thinking right now. Okay, he started out as a YouTuber. Okay, vlogging,
right,
whatever.
right,
He evolved into, I think he was on Disney Channel actually, or maybe his brother was. One of them was on Disney Channel, did a show, and then he switched, went to vlogging for YouTube and stuff, and then he was in boxing and fighting for a while.
which he
I
still
think what it
does.
is, yeah, he still does it, but I think what it is, I think it's I can I think I can do anything, and I think in his mind, okay, boxing, you train and you fight. Okay, simple, easy. It takes certain skills, it takes certain like studying. That's fine. But what I think he's kind of thinking of right now is that, oh, I can study to be a fighter and I'm good at it. Let me study to be a race car driver. But here's the thing: like, what is his knowledge of it? Because
Oh, I
you
guarantee
can't.
you he doesn't have any, and I guarantee it's his money talking out his
No,
ass.
that's what I'm saying. Like, you can have all the money in the freaking world, and you can say that I'm gonna go teach a race car. Okay, cool. It's not like most. I feel like most like normal people think that it's a regular car. There's different automatics and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's not.
Oh,
I mean,
I can definitely tell you that's the case.
yeah. So
Um, Greg kind of knows this story, but one of my buddies used to always tell me that, oh, it's just turning. Okay. So, for those that don't know, um, I do probably one of the most basic forms in motorsports, autocross. But it still involves me using basic racecraft. Well, Connor came to his first event, and he rode with me, and he rode with Dad. Well, let's just say he has a newfound respect for race car drivers after that.
yeah, I totally couldn't understand why. Even for me, you just have to kind of see it in person. Like you said, like see what exactly it entails. So I'm not gonna lie. Nick, I'm gonna be totally honest with you right now. Like me thinking you race cars, I'm like, oh, that's pretty like easy. Probably
No,
he knows
I
sticks.
trust me, I've heard it before.
So like that's what I'm saying. So like, but now me like knowing you for a while and then like kind of understanding like what you're building with like your car and like what you need for it and the things that you kind of like are saving for. Like there's a newfound respect there when it comes to what you do because it takes effort, it takes research, it takes money, and it takes just a skill. It's a lot of skill that not a lot of people really would want to learn or would want to kind of put up with.
Right.
So it's a
And
newfound respect there.
going back to Jake Paul, right? Granted, yeah. If he pays enough money, somebody will put his ass in a seat. Will it be somebody like Rick Hendrick? Oh, hell no. Hell no. Rick Hendrick has more money than he knows what to do with.
The man has a
That's why he basically self-funded Kyle Larson this year.
he literally has, yeah. And not even just that, he has a beautiful mansion in Fort Lauderdale, which Greg and I happen to see. And yeah,
Yeah.
man has so much money and absolutely not, exactly. So you got to start from the basics and work your way up, which is basically what he did.
Right.
You know,
No,
Nick, if you really, I was gonna say, Nick, if you really want to fill a seat, why don't you invite one of the Paul brothers out to get your car spin and see what happens? I mean,
yeah.
David Land didn't take you up on the offer, so shit. If they want to get into racing, there's their invite.
Well, not only is there their invite, but I have a feeling my clutch would not like me so much. But who knows? Maybe that's something we try for next season, just for the hell of it.
Yeah, get them in, and then I can slide into that seat too because I've yet to go into Ruthless.
I know. We're working on that. That's over the winter project that we're
Yeah, just
going
get
to
your car
take care
fixed.
of. Yeah, I got to get the car set up for next year. Um, but I mean, yeah. Would somebody put him in as? Would somebody like? Now, I don't think RFK would, because they just, basically cut Keselowski into the team.
Oh hell no, they won't do that. I feel
Um,
like it would be like a Rick Ware racing or like a track out. Not even.
it wouldn't even be Trackhouse,
No, not
honestly.
Trackhouse.
Trackhouse is fully funded, and Pitbull is like Mr. H. He has more money than he knows what to do with, and clearly, let's be real, clearly, he knows how to spend it, and he wants to be in the sport. I think if you put Jake Paul in a car, there is a clear understanding that we're not going to do very well, but we're going to take his money and run with it anyways.
I feel like it'd be more of like a Wood Brothers or a.
No, it ain't. It wouldn't be a charter team.
No,
No, it's a Michael Jordan situation, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It wouldn't be a charter team. I don't think. So it would be actually. I think RWR has charters now that I think about it. So I don't even think it would be Rick Ware. It'd be like oh God, who starts and parks in the Cup Series? I don't think anybody does. So it wouldn't even be Cup Series. It'd be something like Xfinity or Trucks probably.
What about like Spire Motorsports? I think what
Spire
was that,
doesn't
LaJoy?
exist.
Yeah, it does. That's LaJoy's.
Oh, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
I could
Yeah.
see that, but nope, they wouldn't kick Corey LaJoy out of that chartered car.
No, exactly.
Oh, they could probably send him to front row.
Do like a burnout on Broadway thing where he just sits in the passenger seat.
That's probably what's gonna happen eventually. That's probably Jake Paul's only foray into
And
NASCAR is a burnout on Broadway appearance.
honestly, Jake Paul's entrance to NASCAR probably would be in the ARCA series. They're
Oh
not going to
yeah.
put him in the high end
If you're
car.
smart, yes.
I
Be
wouldn't give him too much credit.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I said if you're smart, it would be in something like ARCA or a lower end series like that because then either A, he would just bankroll the whole team himself, which wouldn't surprise me. Or and B, it wouldn't be that detrimental to say the Cup series or the Xfinity series, where let's be real, the racing is good, the drama is there, the social media side is there, and it does not need any outside help.
I think I'm not gonna lie, money talks. I'm be straight up right now, but
Oh, for sure.
I don't think, like you said, they don't need help in that department. They
No.
have enough where they're pretty solid on when it comes to like social media and all that. Because I mean, think about it. All these drivers have social media. All these drivers have PR people, and they have people like constantly
And
updating
they also
their.
have diehard loyal fan bases.
But yeah, well, I can. I mean, I'll say this honestly. Like, I probably follow every single Hendrick driver on Instagram, on Twitter,
Oh, I know I
and
do.
yeah. So like, I follow all these racers, and that's what I'm saying. So like, Jake Paul coming in here, I think it's kind of like him just saying like, oh look, I can do multiple things. Let me do this thing that I think I can do because I'm just that kind of person that can basically throw his fucking, excuse my language, fucking life around and jump from one thing to another.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, NASCAR's already seen a lot of outside help at this point. You got the Coliseum, which is probably the biggest mistake they ever could do because they wanted to piggyback off of the NFL. Because I think,
So
was it
I
Bill?
will reserve my judgment on that until I see the racing.
That's fair.
However, however, because it's the first race in the next gen car, granted it's not an exposition, it's an exposition, it's not a points paying race, it's not like if it was the Clash at Daytona, right? I wouldn't put any stock in it because those are their Daytona cars. They're going to bring
Right.
them back in a couple weeks and
Hmm.
run the 500 and run the speed weeks.
Yeah. So in the sense, I feel like, I mean, the Coliseum, I feel like it'd be, not gonna lie, I feel like it'd be interesting because, I mean, you think about it, think about what didn't IndyCar just do Nashville GP for the first
Right.
time in a
Yes,
while?
they did. For the first
And,
time ever was the
no, first
Nashville
time ever.
GP. It was the Nashville GP on the street circuit. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so there you go. There's one thing where it's like they're trying something new. Kind of what NASCAR is doing. It's like, it's just for shits and giggles, let's try it at the Coliseum just for fun. I mean,
And, and it's
honestly, what
not
harm?
and Greg, honestly, it's not that they're trying to piggyback off the NFL. No, they are trying to get another race in the West Coast LA market. And honestly, with their reigning defending series champion from California, why wouldn't they?
Well, one thought. Well, then it'd be the Auto Club, right? Speedway. That would be Larson's home track since that's in California.
It would either be Auto Club or it would be Sonoma. Yes.
I feel like Sonoma would be a good one too. But I mean, West Coast tracks. I mean, as far as I can like think of right now for like West Coast, like the two big ones are Sonoma and Auto Club, which are the two biggest ones.
So
And
if
then
you're a road racer, you're going to be at Sonoma or you're going to be at Laguna Seca. If you're an oval racer, you're at Fontana.
right, exactly. So it just kind of depends. And then you got Vegas. That's of course one.
Right.
That's on the West Coast, and then you got Phoenix, of course. So and then I think no, that's a road course. The Portland, that's a road course.
Portland is a road course and it's
That's
IndyCar.
IndyCar. Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
See. So
And it's a street
yeah,
circuit, so it's not always around.
correct. So I mean, maybe you have a thought of like maybe it's just like a way to go back into the West Coast, or maybe they're just like Nashville, trying it for fun, see what can happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Greg, do you have
So
anything to add?
I just find it interesting with the fact that they announced it before even Kyle Larson was going to win the championship. That's why I say it's going to be a piggyback. I think because a lot of people are going to be in town from the week before, there's a good chance that they're hoping that a lot of those people are going to end up coming over to the Coliseum
Oh,
and seeing
I
what
don't
NASCAR has to
doubt that
offer.
either. I don't
I
doubt
think
that
that's
either. That's
that's
why
that's
they're
what a majority of
capitalizing on that Los Angeles market. That's why I
that.
said that particular statement.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I still think NASCAR should go to Laguna Seca.
That is a
Let's just
race
change
that
the
I would
ride
go.
hard.
That is a race where I would fly out and pay to see that race.
Exactly. Make just bump up their chassis, make everything a little higher, and they should be good to go.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, IMSA runs there, so IMSA is owned by NASCAR, so you think the safety standards would be there.
You got IndyCar. They run there, or they used to, I think, right?
No, they still do, I believe.
They still do. Okay. I
I
mean,
don't know for sure, but I know I know as close as at least 2 years ago they did. I think
yeah. I mean,
because
at
they're
the end of the
trying new things, it might have gotten
awesome.
shuffled off the schedule, but I bet it'll land itself back on there at some point.
right, it easily could be possible for NASCAR to run at a venue like that.
Right,
I
and
mean,
that's kind of why I said, well, IMSA runs there. IMSA's owned by NASCAR, so the theory in theory it's there. Honestly, I would love to see a sports car, and they used to do this actually with the Xfinity race at Mid Ohio, and I think they still do. They ran SCCA, TA2, and TA1, and a couple other classes of support race to support the Xfinity race. I would honestly love to see an IMSA NASCAR either combine, because who doesn't like multi-class racing, or at least a double header.
Yeah, I mean that would be cool too because I mean I feel like a lot of people come for they'll come from one or another. Like when we went to Greg and I went to the IndyCar NASCAR doubleheader, and you notice the significant fans that were there for IndyCar, and then there were fans there for just NASCAR, and then there were fans there for both. And I mean, I'm gonna be totally honest right now. I feel like half it was, oh, so it's an IndyCar weekend, but also you got 7-time Jimmy Johnson running IndyCar, and who is now full time, which is awesome.
Right. That
But
just came out today,
and
but that
that's
is
I feel like
awesome. I agree.
that'll be awesome. But I feel like that's what it is. It's like you're combining like those two car racing that are semi similar but not that similar. And
Right.
it's kind of introducing it to another audience that, some, like I said, some NASCAR drivers that may have never seen IndyCar, they can experience IndyCar. Unlike my experience where I was standing literally elbow to elbow with Ryan Blaney, and I was very upset that I did not say hi. Because I'm
I
like,
still
I
laugh at that.
just shell shock, man. Because I noticed him, and he is a very handsome man, but also he has like those aviators. He has like his mustache, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm like, he seems interesting. I'm like, okay, I wonder, like, he looks familiar. Why does he look familiar to me? Then lo and behold, oh wait, that was Ryan Blaney. So weird opportunity missed, but also cool to see because there we go, to a driver from a completely different circuit coming watching an IndyCar race. It's kind of cool to see.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of leads into a little bit of a personal announcement to round this thing out. Um, I'm actually going to run. Granted, this isn't on the same scale as like IndyCar or NASCAR, right? But I'm actually going to run the at least half of the Fremont 500 next year, which is a 500 lap event at the Fremont Motorsports Park in
I
Fremont,
was gonna
Ohio.
say you weren't looking too hot at the racetrack this past weekend when I was out there.
Oh,
You
please.
were you were sitting kind of far behind me. I mean, 100th of a second.
Oh, please. You do realize you're saying hundredths, not tenths, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm not gonna lie. I was sitting there, and then of course, me being a spectator, a lot of the people out there were quite interesting, except
Yeah.
you two, who were just basically biting each other's heads off. But that's a different story. We'll get to that. But it's good practice for you at least now, because it's like, okay, wow, you got the feel of a go kart, and now you're
Right.
going, and not the greatest go kart, but
Yeah.
here we are. Now you're racing 500 laps, half of 500 laps, so in a go kart.
At least half. I don't know what the exact split's gonna be, but it's gonna be interesting.
I mean, if it's half, then it would be probably like 250
Well,
each.
it is going to be at minimum 250 laps because I want to do at least half. So,
All right, so
if not more than that.
I think you could do. You could. I mean, would you do 500 if
Oh,
you
for
were
sure.
offered that chance?
If I either had my own cart or had because the originally the guy I was going to be paired with was only doing 150 laps.
Okay.
And I said, well, I'll just do the rest. It can't be that hard.
So I'm gonna
Little do
put
I know, but
I'm gonna put you in a spot really quick.
go for it.
What are your expectations going into this? What are
To
like
finish.
what do you
To
okay,
finish.
besides the obvious of like finishing, like we understand that. But like are you going to like go in it with an open mind, or are you gonna go in it thinking it's like go-karting, like when we were there in
Oh.
Indy?
So my mindset is yes, it's a go-kart, but it's a go-kart that I have complete control over. Meaning, right? I can dictate the setup. I don't. This isn't a rental cart with a fixed setup in it. Quite frankly, most rental carts, at least in my opinion, have shit ass setups in them, anyways.
Oh, they do
So,
100%.
I mean, it's gonna be a step up. I'm gonna be on fresh tires. That's a difference. Um, Hopefully, I will be able to get some sort of seat time in this cart. And it will be the same cart. It won't be a different one every time. But the main thing for me is I'm going to attempt, and keep in mind this is going to be largely before the autocross season too. So that'll be nice too, in the fact that I will be able to kind of knock the rust off of my autocross racing acumen um, before race season starts again, which will be nice. Um,
Well, I mean, I understand that, but in the same vein, like, wouldn't it be also kind of like getting used to a new setup type per se? Because you're getting ready for autocross and you know your car and you know how it runs and you know all the, aesthetics behind it and you know what to expect from it. Whereas go-karting, like, isn't it kind of like a different mindset type of thing? Or,
so yes and no. Yes, in the fact that it's a different car. No, in the fact that, and don't get me wrong, somebody could obviously come out and scream at me and say, no, you're completely wrong. But, um, no, in the fact that the basics of racecraft, so running a line, picking a line, picking, say, for instance, a braking point, those kinds of things are still going to be the same.
oh, absolutely.
Is the setup going to be different? Oh, yes. 1,000 times, yes. The setup is different. You're looking at, you're actually looking at so like in autocross, for example, you're not particularly looking at your gear ratio. In a chain-driven go-kart where you need to sometimes be pulled out of a corner from literally a dead stop, you need to look at your gear ratio to determine your final drive, things like that. And just the fact that it's wheel to wheel as opposed to single car runs, right? That's not a thing in autocross. Certainly nobody's going to take their 50, 75, $100,000 car and race it wheel to wheel. That's kind
Oh,
of
God,
dumb. That's
no.
kind of dumb. So, is it going to be a new experience for me? Yes, in the fact that I've never really done wheel to wheel racing in real life. I have done sim racing, obviously, but I've never really done wheel to wheel racing in real life with people that can drive,
Okay.
other than Greg.
I mean, I don't.
Sounds like she's
I
not giving
mean,
you as much credit, Greg, as she's
no,
giving
no,
me.
no.
So,
I give him
I could pull
credit.
out those score sheets.
Listen, I give him credit when it comes to things like that. But I mean, like when it comes to like actually like auto racing. I mean, like like you say, sim racing and actually doing something is completely different. So, but I mean, sticking to my man that is opposing me right now, I don't think I'm gonna say who is better than others and who is more experienced because yeah.
but
Yeah, she doesn't
yes,
want to play favorite. She loves both of us.
yeah, I know. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be fun. I'm going into it with the mindset of having fun, and at that point, there isn't exactly much else that will make me mad or angry about it. So that's kind of nice. And for me, the cost of entry is going to be very low, which is also
Oh, that's
very nice. I just have to invest some in my safety gear, which I was gonna have to do anyways. Some of it I already have.
so
Um,
basically killing two birds with one stone.
correct. And then the driver fee is actually um, surprisingly cheap. But
I
I don't
mean,
know what expenses I'm gonna have to front on the back end.
I would say, I mean, the
I would assume
initial
there's gonna be
entry.
some fuel costs there. There might
Yeah,
be a set of tires cost there, which a set of tires is way cheaper than five or six.
yeah.
Um, just stuff like that.
Like I said,
Incidental.
that's probably why. I mean, from what I'm kind of thinking of right now, like probably why the entrance or the driver admission fee is cheap, just because like there probably is like some other expenses that you have to keep up with and you have to think about, and that's why they won't, probably be like, oh, you have to pay like
Well, so there's
$600 to
so
join.
so the way this works, the way this particular event works, it's a $75 cart fee, which the owner of the cart pays, which I don't have to pay, even though I probably will offer to pay at least some of it because, I'm driving his cart and he's going to get 10% of my winnings anyways.
And you are just a nice person like that too.
Correct. Um, so there's a $75 cart fee to enter the cart, and then per driver, it's $25. So, say for example, if I had my own cart, which would be really freaking nice, stay tuned. That might be coming down the road next year.
Easy
Um,
there, Tiger. You gotta fix your first car first.
yeah, well, I gotta fix that car first. You are correct. But I don't foresee that being that much. Um, it's gonna cost me more to set it up probably than actually fix it, but that's beside the point. Um, so if I were a solo driver, just with the cart and myself, entry fees would only be $100, period. And then also too, there's a chance to make that back because it's a winner take all kind of thing. So if I win it, which I'm not expecting to, I would make a decent amount of money, which is
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. I could
Um,
definitely see that.
but am I expecting to win? No. Um,
should always have the mindset of you're gonna do good.
Oh, I don't doubt that I'm gonna do good. I just don't know if I just don't know if I'll be able to win it.
Oh, if you place and it's
Oh, if I
not
place,
last,
I'll be happy.
if you place and it's not last, that's a good thing.
Exactly. So,
I'm not on track, Nick. You'll be okay.
no, I'll be on track with people that go to the University of Northwestern Ohio. Um, which, for those that don't know, that's the premier school, one of the premier schools in the country for everything from motorsports driving to high performance mechanics. Um, I may be out of my league, but we'll see. Who knows?
I was going to say, you just give them a wonderful ad read for free.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a state school. It's not like they'd pay me that much, anyways.
State funding is great. I mean, they got the money for it. Why not?
Well, that is true. That is true. But on that bombshell, to coin a line from a certain fellow, because, I mean, we've talked about a lot tonight, I think we're going to, end it for the week. And at least I'll be back next week. I don't necessarily who will be hosting the show with me next week, but we'll find out when we get there. For Greg and Maria, this has been Nick Burnell. Have a good one, and we'll see you next week.